Aaron Rodgers injury fallout plus week 2 waiver targets next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Dan Schneier, and we were planning on just talking about winners and losers from the Bills-Jets game and some waiver wire targets, but then 4 snaps into the game, that all changes. Aaron Rodgers goes down with what the Jets believe to be an Achilles injury, quote Robert Saleh, head coach. It doesn't look good. I mean, the ramifications of this are significant for the Jets, for fantasy, for the Packers, who needed Aaron Rodgers to play 70% of the snaps to get a first-round pick back in that trade. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. But, Dan, what I want to ask you is, look, Breece Hall looked awesome. He looked awesome in this offense with Zach Wilson early last season. I think he'll be fine. Can Garrett Wilson be a wide receiver 1 with Zach Wilson as his quarterback?
I don't think so, Chris. And I think it's going to be a very frustrating year for those who invested heavily in Garrett Wilson. No, not by anything they could, control, just bad luck. And you did a great job going over, for those who want to go over to CBS Sports, what Garrett Wilson's numbers looked like with Zach Wilson last year, and they weren't pretty. They were borderline unusable. And I don't think it'll be as bad this season, but I can't expect a major jump. Considering it's a new system. Zach Wilson had very little time, if any, with the ones this preseason and in training camp. So that's going to be something he's going to have to get used to. So I just don't see it happening this year with Garrett Wilson without Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I was on CBS Sports HQ doing the post-game hit, and they asked me for my biggest winners and losers from the game. I sent it about maybe 10 minutes before the end of the game, and I had Garrett Wilson as the biggest loser. Immediately after that, he has that circus touchdown, just unbelievable play by Garrett Wilson to bring in that touchdown. He had 5 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. He needed an absolutely absurd circus play. Look, the play highlights his talent. He's an incredible player. He might be one of the 10 best wide receivers in the NFL already. And maybe he can be a wide receiver too, with big upside weeks and big disappointment weeks. But yeah, 8.5 games with Zach Wilson as the quarterback last season, 430 yards in those 8.5 games. Wilson just didn't look his way very often. It was a 21% target share today. 5 of his 21 passes went to Garrett Wilson. Zach Wilson just doesn't play within the flow of the offense very well. And that doesn't seem to work with Garrett Wilson. It's a really frustrating situation, but we'll move on to the top waiver wire targets. And I asked Jamie Eisenberg, send me his top 5. I'm going to give you, it's very running back heavy, but there's one interesting one that was absent that I want to ask you about. Top ones for Jamie: Kenneth Gainwell, 54% rostered, Gus Edwards, 36%. Kyren Williams of the Rams, 11%. Justice Hill, 1%, also of the Ravens, along with Gus Edwards. However, Austin Eckler is dealing with an ankle injury, so that puts his status in week 2 up to some question. He's a tough guy. He's played through injuries that we didn't think he could in the past, including at times last season. But Joshua Kelly looked really good in week 1. This Chargers offense was running all over a very good Dolphins front 7. Joshua Kelly could be like a top 15 running back in week 2 if Austin Eckler doesn't play. Now, we may not know that by the time waivers run. Would you rather go get Kenneth Gainwell, Gus Edwards, Kyren Williams, or would you throw your fab dollars at Joshua Kelly?
I think I'd swing for the fences with Joshua Kelly. If Eckler does miss a game or two with the injury and he didn't return to the game, Kelly will be the highest upside of any of those backs. Mm-hmm. But I would say this: if it's not Kelly and we get early news tomorrow that Eckler should be fine, I'm looking at Kyren Williams, Chris. Yeah. I know it's going to be a hot hand approach, so there will be times. Don't expect to add Kyren Williams and have him save your season. There will be times where they go back to Akers, but Kyren Williams was used in the red zone. He was used on passing downs. He got so many of the snaps, and people didn't expect that. And he caught a little bit of hype last year. Staff likes him. Yeah, go ahead.
He had more targets he had more carries than Cam Akers heading into the fourth quarter. It was 11-10. That was really surprising. The usage there. Akers played 4 of the first 8 snaps. He got the start, played 4 of the first 8 snaps. Then it was 22 snaps in a row for Kyren Williams until halftime. So he was just the lead back there in week 1. And that could be the case because there's just some weirdness between Sean McVay and Cam Akers. We saw Cam Akers get sent home last year.
And I was pleasantly surprised, by the way, with how the Rams offensive line performed in that game. I went back and watched because I studied Puka Nacua for today's Beyond the Box Score show. And I got to say, this was supposed to be one of the worst or second worst offensive lines in the NFL. They were literally trading for players from the Steelers at the end of camp. and yet they blocked really well in that game against a pretty solid Seahawks front.
You mentioned Puka Nacua, 7% rostered. I'm so excited about what he showed in week 1. 10 catches for 119 yards on 15 targets. One of the best debut games we've ever seen from a rookie wide receiver, let alone a 5th rounder who garnered very little hype in draft season. But, this is something Jacob Gibbs of Sportsline has been on all off season. He was Puka Nacua, not Jacob Gibbs, was a very high volume target earner during his time in college. Great after the catch guy. And Matthew Stafford looked like Matthew Stafford for the first time since that Super Bowl run. Remember, he was dealing with an elbow injury last year, didn't look like himself. This week, he was throwing the ball downfield. He was confident. He was aggressive. Defenses are going to have to respect the over-the-top game with Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Puka Nacua. I'm ranking him as a wide receiver 3 for week 2. Would you rather have him or any of those running backs on waivers?
It would be Puka Nacua by far for me. I went back and watched his film. He got open on a crazy amount of routes. He got open on the dig routes. He also got open on a late corner route where he had to extend away from his frame and fight away contact, which was incredibly impressive. And he could have had another 43 yards and a touchdown on a vertical route where he got unbelievable separation with a great release off the line of scrimmage. He beat his guy. He stacked the defensive back. Stafford just slightly overthrown. You got to feel like the next time that comes around, he's going to land it on him because they're going to have more time and more reps together. I was surprised at how much he played on the boundary outside. I thought he might play as strictly in the slot. I thought that was a really good sign because once Cooper Kupp comes back, that means Nacua could still be a big part of this offense. Could maybe even be like a Robert Woods type situation, old Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp type situation here. I am spending a solid chunk of my free agent budget to get him this week.
I don't want to say how much I'm spending.
Same.
Because maybe people in my leagues will be listening, but I will say in one league, I've already put in a waiver claim for him. I went 22%.
Okay.
I don't know if that's too aggressive or not aggressive enough.
I think it might land you him, but I think I'm going to go even more. I shouldn't.
Well, now
that.
You know. That's why I didn't want to say it. I don't think you're in that league, but now I know who I have to compete with in my other leagues. All right, that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll see you tomorrow.